The degree apprenticeship application process, how to pass every stage. In this video, I'm going to show you how to pass every stage of the degree apprenticeship application process, exactly what it says on the tin. Just before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name's Owen. I'm a degree apprentice. Last year I got 8 degree apprenticeship offers myself, and now I help people get degree apprenticeships in the engineering, technology and finance industries. Here are some of the people I helped last year get offers from companies like JLR, HSBC, Rolls-Royce, Amazon, KPMG, IBM, just to name a few. But without further ado, let's get into this video, how to pass every single stage of the degree apprenticeship application process. I'll put some timestamps down below so you can skip to the section you want if needed. So different stages of the application process: there's initial application, intermediate stages, and the assessment centre. Let's jump straight into the initial applications. The first thing they might ask you is details, things like your name, address, date of birth, etc., grades. Just two things here. Number one, fill everything in, because it's an easy mistake to make. Some of these application forms can be super long. You end up missing something. Just make sure you fill everything in, because if you don't fill it in, they're going to reject you. Okay, I've had conversations with a recruiter, and he's told me that they get so many applications that they basically look for any reason at all to reject someone. So if you've missed out a certain section, easy for them to reject you. Second thing is just don't lie on your grades, because they'll do like a formal check later where they ask for your certificates and all this sort of thing. So I've heard people who lie about their grades, and then they end up getting the offer, and then when they actually get asked for evidence of their grades, they don't have evidence because they lied about their grades, and then they lose the offer. So obviously just don't do that. Just put everything in as it's supposed to be. Okay, so a lot of applications ask for a CV. This is a sample on screen. This is one of the CVs that I submitted, and this one actually successfully got me a degree apprenticeship offer. And this was the structure I used for all of my CVs that got me my 8 degree apprenticeship offers. You can see what I've done here. Number one, you want a personal statement. This is 3 or 4 sentences which explain yourself, and you want to make sure you're using keywords from the job description. So if you have a look here, if it's a bit small on your screen and you're on phone, by the way, on YouTube you can like zoom in, so have a look at that if that helps. But you can see there I've put things like takes an innovative approach to solving problems, explores creative solutions to challenges. Okay, key areas of the future like sustainability. I'm putting down some keywords in my personal statement, which is going to show them the skills I have, the interests I have. Okay, then you're going to put down education, put down your grades, all that sort of thing. And then it's really important that you have a work experience section with a good number of work experience placements. I always had about 3 or 4 work experience. Work experience was the number one reason I managed to get the job I get. Okay, and then I've got a key achievement section where I've put down everything else. So what are the key tips here? Well, first of all, you want perfect spelling and grammar. As I said before, they want any reason to reject you because they get so many applications. They just want to cut them down as quickly as possible. If they get a spelling mistake, a recruiter's told me that he just gets rid of it straight away. Now, in terms of length, there's a bit of debate on this one. Should it be 1 page? Should it be 2 pages? Well, first things first, 2 pages maximum. You don't want it being 3 or 4 pages, anything like that, because it's too long and the recruiters won't read it. Okay, so it has to be 2 pages maximum. Now there's debate on should it be 1 page or 2 page. Some people say 1 page, but I say 2 page, because the problem is with 1 page, you're not actually going to fit that much on 1 page. Like imagine this CV, I had to fit this all onto 1 page. I'd have to have cut out like half of that work experience. I'd have to cut out half of those kitchen. I'd have to cut out half of it, and I just wouldn't have half of the like stuff that I've put on there, and it just wouldn't be as good an application. So all my applications, I did a 2-page CV, and it got me 8 degree apprenticeship offers. So I would recommend going to that 2-page maximum. Okay, have 2 to 4 work experience placements. Because the key thing, this is another thing that a different recruiter told me, is that it shows the candidate is proactive and takes the initiative. Okay, because you care about your learning, you've gone and done these work experience placements. And really, a lot of people don't even bother, especially since COVID. Work experience has been kind of difficult to get. So if you can get 2 or 4 work experience placements, like on this one, this is one I submitted. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 4 work experience placements. Then it's going to look really good. The next one is have a wide range of unrelated extracurricular activities. Okay, so I've seen some people say, oh, if it's not related, don't put it on. Why would you put you're on a sports team? It's nothing to do with an engineering degree apprenticeship. Well, actually, it's not about you being part of a sports team. Like, no one cares about that. It's about the fact that from being in a sports team, you're going to have collaboration skills. You're going to have perseverance. You're going to have like teamwork skills, communication skills, because you're in a sports team. Because that's why it's good to put those unrelated extracurricular activities. Something like D&V, okay, yeah, fair enough. In your software engineering degree apprenticeship, you're not going to have to climb up a mountain, right? But in D&V, it's going to have taught you interpersonal skills. It's going to have taught you problem-solving skills. It's going to taught you dedication and perseverance. Okay, so that's why it's good to have a wide range of unrelated extracurricular activities. That's why I have something like a key achievement section, where I basically put in all these stuff that's kind of unrelated potentially. Something like D of E, right? Something like I'll play trumpet, a musical instrument. Okay, something like, oh, in the work experience section, I was a prefect. Well, a prefect's got nothing to do with doing civil engineering or electrical engineering, but being a prefect taught me good interpersonal communication skills, which are going to be useful for the workplace. So that's about the CV. It's a skills-based CV. They're going to be looking for, what are your skills? Do you have the skills to be a good candidate? Do you have the skills to be a good employee at my company? That's the question they're going to be asking. And a really good way to show a lot of those skills, like the key ones like leadership, attention to detail, time management, creativity, communication, is things that are unrelated. D&V, volunteering, sports team, musical instruments, even hobbies, anything like that. Okay. And the final tip I have for you on the CV is use the required skills from the job description. So you're going to have to make a personalized CV for each company. You can use like the same sort of template, but you want to make sure you personalize it. The way you personalize it is looking at the job description, having a look at the required skills. So every single job description, it's going to say somewhere required skills, and it's going to have a list. And it's basically what skills is that company looking for. Again, as I said, it will usually be things like communication skills, attention to detail, time management. What you want to do is go through that job description, make sure you can literally tick off every single one of those required skills from the job description. It needs to be mentioned somewhere in your CV. Because what that tells the recruiter is you're a perfect fit for the job because you've literally ticked off every single one of the required skills that they were looking for. So I'll show you an example here. This one that I was actually applying to with this, it had a specific required skill in there which said ability to use Microsoft programs. That's why this line, you see this on the top right, I'm talking about one of the work experience I did. I said required technical skills for use of Microsoft programs, Word and PowerPoint. I put that line there on purpose because the use of Microsoft programs had been mentioned in the required skills. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put that line in there because who really cares about Word and PowerPoint? But that's where the personalization comes in. It's where you look at the job description, what specifically are they looking for, and then make sure you can basically tick every single one of those off from the job description. Okay, that's the CV. Okay, so moving on to a cover letter. This is, some companies do ask for a cover letter, which is basically one page. Basically talking about your motivations, talking about yourself. So what are my tips for your cover letter? Basically write one even when it's optional. So a lot of the time when they ask for a cover letter, it can actually be optional. So it's easy to just not bother and be like, you know what, I won't write a cover letter then. I would recommend write your cover letter because it basically means if you don't write a cover letter, there's going to be someone else who spent the time writing a cover letter and they're going to beat you in the application because they're the one who's actually put in effort to write a cover letter. Same as before, perfect spelling and grammar or they'll just get rid of you. This wants to be 1 page maximum for a cover letter. Another key thing here is personalize with research, okay? Because if you write one cover letter and you just submit that to every single company, trust me, it's not going to be successful, okay? Because they can just see it's a generic cover letter, it's nothing about that company, right? You want to personalize it with research on things like the company's vision, their values and projects. So you can see in this cover letter, this is sort of a sample cover letter I wrote, which is based on the structure that helped me get all my offers. I'd always have a sort of research paragraph which talks specifically about the company. Okay, I want to work for your company because I know that you have this value and you do this, you do this. I know your goal is to be net zero. I read about this project you did on the right? When they submit this, they show they can see I've done some detailed research on their company. Rather than just making a generic cover letter and sending them off to everyone. So make sure you're doing that. Go through all their company websites, look at things, their values, what recent work have they been doing, what recent projects have they been on. Okay? And a bonus tip here is don't repeat things from your CV. So in your CV, you're going to be mentioning different work experience, different achievements, that sort of thing. It's actually a bonus tip if you don't repeat the same things in your cover letter, if you say different things in your cover letter. Because that means you're basically saying more things overall. Because if you're just copying the same thing from your CV into your cover letter, it's not really adding to your application. But if you've got work experience A in your CV and then work experience B in your cover letter, it shows you've now got 2 different work experience. Rather than doing work experience A in your CV and work experience A in your cover letter, it's just like you're talking about the same thing, it's just one work experience. If possible, basically don't repeat things in your cover letter from your CV. Just use the opportunity to show off different examples to show just the quantity of experience that you have. Another thing they can ask is application questions. Things like, why would you like to work for a company? And they'll usually say something like max 750 characters, max 500 characters, that sort of thing. The key here is use as much space as possible. Okay? It's the same with the cover letter. You can end up in these questions, you can either not answer them, or you can literally, out of 750 characters, you could write like one sentence and do like 100 characters, right? But like, it's worth putting in that extra effort to go up to 750. So for all of these, I would be submitting 748 characters roughly for each answer. Like, I'm literally right on the limit. I'd usually end up writing like an 800 character answer, have to cut it down, make sure it's really good. Again, don't repeat things from your CV and cover letter. So if you've got any other things you can say, just add those. Again, it just adds up to how much work experience you have. These are some sort of common application questions I've been asked before. Things like, can you tell us what you feel your strengths are? This is where you want to talk about different strengths to the strengths you might have talked about in your CV or your cover letter. That's what I mean by not talking about the same thing. Tell me about the time you did something really well. Don't necessarily mention the same work experience you might have already talked about in your cover letter. And then also, what they can have is a section like this. This is your opportunity to impress our assessors. Please include anything further you think would help your application. A lot of people are just going to see this and sort of ignore it because it's like, oh, it's another paragraph I have to write, I can't be bothered. This is worth doing. If you, especially whenever I see something like that, I would make sure that I'm filling it out completely, just because it means you're going to be ahead of all the other candidates who can be bothered. Like, you spent 1 hour writing out all your application questions, and now you're actually going to be getting through to the next stage, compared to everyone else who couldn't be bothered, but they end up getting rejected. Okay, so it's worth the effort on these application questions. That's the main thing. Just make sure you actually do them. I think that's the constraint, to be honest, for most people. And then I explain this. The work experience education boxes is where this is how some companies do it these days. It's sort of a bit different to the CV sort of cover letter approach. It's basically where they give you Google Forms with a bunch of like boxes. You have to fill out your like work experience. They give you one Google Forms for your education and like one sort of Google Forms for your work experience. It looks a bit like this. You just sort of fill it in with all your GCSEs and A-levels, that sort of thing. With these, there's no opportunity to write anything else. So as I said, when the companies decide to do this approach, which they sometimes do, and I think more and more companies are doing this approach, there's no opportunity to write anything else. You can't write a CV, you can't write a cover letter, you can't write application questions. It's literally just this. This is the only thing in your application. So you need to focus on quantity. You want to be getting down as many work experience boxes as you can, as many education boxes as you can, because that's the only thing on your side. Usually there might be a description thing, which is 200 words maximum. Okay? Which basically means you can't even write that much. It's just about quantity. Get as many of these work experience in there. Add extra things to your work experience. So you don't have to put fully like work experience things in the work experience section. I'd be putting things like D&V, being part of a club, volunteering. I'd be putting all those sorts of things which aren't like technically work experience, but like they're good things for my application. If you don't mention them here, the assessors aren't going to know about it and they might reject you. So it's worth putting those extra things in the work experience section. Same with the education section. So the education section is supposed to be things like your GCSEs and A-levels, but I'd also add extra things here, things like courses, things like any certificates I had, certifications I had, that sort of thing. Things that aren't like formal education like GCSEs and A-levels, but they're still extra things I can put in there to boost my application. That's what you can do if you're one of the companies you're applying to does like work experience / education boxes. And there we go, that's the initial application. Those are how you can basically pass every single stage of that to make sure you get through the initial application. The next one is the intermediate stages, and this can involve online testing and a video interview. So online testing, there's lots of different types of online testing, and this is basically what you need to do to get through each one of online testing. So personality tests, this is where they're basically going to give you like a bunch of questions to sort of build up a psychometric personality profile of you, see if you're like an extrovert or an introvert, see if you're emotional, see if you're assertive, see if you're a critical thinker. Like, they're just trying to like work out your personality. They're going to be asking you questions like, do you prefer to work alone or work with others? Okay, they might show you two pictures. One's a picture of a busy office. One is someone working alone at their desk. Which one matches you most? And you have to pick the one, right? The key here is consider company values in your decision on which one you want, and like the answers you pick during this personality test. Okay, because if you're working for a company that really cares about, like, they're really big on communication and collaboration and teamwork, like maybe one of their values is unity, you want to make sure in this personality test you're showing off that you're like a collaborative person, you like other people. So in your answers, what I'd do is I'd be picking answers that show I like working with other people, rather than like picking answers that show I'm sort of an independent person on my own. Because basically they're trying to work out, are you a good fit for the company? Doesn't your personality match what we stand for at this company? Okay, so it's that sort of thing. Have a look at their key values. Are some of their key values innovation? In which case you need to show in your personality that rather than just someone who does it how it's supposed to be done, you're always thinking of new ways, creative ways, innovative ways, new ways of doing something. Does that make sense? Okay, just have a look at what does this company value? Do they value communication? Do they value innovation? Do they value integrity? Okay, and basically choose your answers there to basically show off that personality which matches the company values. Another type they can do is situational judgment tests, where they're basically going to give you like a hypothetical situation. Say you were doing some work and you then had to end up doing another work and you had to manage the different priorities. What would you do? Would you A, ask for support from a colleague? Would you 2, like battle through it yourself? 3, would you give some early warnings to the project manager to let you know that you might be a bit delayed? Which one would you do, right? And this is where you want to consider company behaviors. Again, so if it's the company, if like the values and behaviors are sort of the same thing. If the company is like a company that really cares about just independence and hard work, then you choose the option which is like, I just sort of get the work done, just stick my head down and do it. If you're part of a company which cares about collaboration and unity and all this nice stuff, then you choose the option which might be like, oh, I'd ask a colleague if they could help and support me and all this sort of thing. Right, does that make sense? So you want to just choose the decision that matches the company, because then they're going to look at your decisions and be like, oh, this guy makes good decisions that actually match our company. He'd be a good fit for our company. He makes like these good decisions. Okay, that's how the situational judgment one works. Numerical ability, mental math. So basically, you're going to put a bunch of sums on the screen. 13 times 16, do it. Can I even do that right now? 13 times 16 is 195. I want to say 208. I want to say 208. Do I have a calculator on me? There we go, 208. I was right. Okay. Yeah, so that's what the numerical ability mental math one is going to be. They're basically going to put a bunch of sums on the screen and you have to just do them. That's just the simple thing there is just practice. Like, you need to be good at math, good at sums, doing multiplications like that in your head. That is what it is. Another one they can do is game-based assessments. The most common one here is Arctic Shores. A lot of companies do Arctic Shores. In particular, Amazon, I know that they do Arctic Shores. With these, it's basically you need to learn how to game the system. Because these game-based assessments, they have like algorithms which are like tracking how fast you click and where you click the mouse and all this sort of thing. These can be very difficult. Arctic Shores, the first 2 times I did it, I failed. And I literally got rejected from the application process because of it. So it's purely with these game-based assessments, you just need how to like learn what to do in order to pass, because they're weird like algorithm stuff that if you don't do the right thing, they'll just reject you. So if you got Arctic Shores in particular, I've done a video of this on the channel. I'll link it in like the top right now. Go and click that one, because I basically just break down exactly how it works and like how the algorithm like basically passes you through to the next stage, what it's looking for. Okay. And the final one is logic reasoning tests. These can be things like spot the pattern, spot the odd one out, what's the next in the sequence, all these sorts of things. Those are just about practice. You can go online. There's a website called, SHL. You can go and just do practice tests with them. And that's like the best way of going through and practicing your non-verbal reasoning, your verbal reasoning, your deductive reasoning, numerical thinking, spatial awareness, all these sorts of things. You can do those sort of practice tests. That's how you do the online testing. And then basically, because you've done so many practice tests, by the time you get to the like logic reasoning test, you know how to solve those problems. That's online testing. Now let's move on to a video interview. So video interview, it's where you're not actually with a person. There's no one with you. You're just sort of talking to to your computer, and like the webcam records you automatically. So you get fed questions by a slide deck, so the question's going to appear on screen, and then it just sort of automatically records your answer from the webcam, and then eventually it'll be like the recordings will be reviewed by your assessor at a later date. Okay. 3 key things I want to go into. Number 1, look directly into the webcam. Okay, so whenever I film my videos, I'm trying to look in the webcam as much as I can. The reason for that is because it's more engaging. It's basically eye contact. So this is a lot more engaging for you as a viewer, me looking into the webcam, because it basically means I'm looking at you, compared to me looking down at the screen. It's quite a subtle difference. Like, I'm looking at the webcam, making direct eye contact with you, and then I'm looking down at the screen right now. It's a slight difference, but when you're looking down at the screen, or I'm looking at myself in the camera, for example, it's slightly less engaging than when I'm up here talking to you exactly. So that's why I personally, as like making YouTube videos, I try and look directly into webcam. What it means for you is when you're doing your video interview or any other interviews that are online, make sure you're looking directly into the webcam rather than just like staring at yourself. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of people, they might put like post-it notes near their webcam, just like pointing at the webcam. Just make sure you're looking at that webcam. Right, the other thing is, second thing with video interviews, you're usually given time to prepare, so the question will like appear on screen by the slide deck, and usually they'll give you like 60 seconds to prepare your answer. The way I do this is I basically plan the journey of my answer and note down like on paper the key points. Okay, so just think about the question. What do I want to cover? Quickly write it down, the key points. Like I'll write 5 words on a piece of paper. And then that means when you're going to answer, because you've actually planned the journey, you actually know what you're talking about, and you're actually going to get somewhere. When I've done mock interviews with people in the past, they sort of start answering a question, and they literally just stop like 30 seconds in. Like they're fully, this is a real thing, and it's not like, oh, one person did it. It was consistently a lot of people doing the same thing. They'd start doing an interview answer, 30 seconds in, they just stop and have no idea what they're talking about, and like they'd have to just like pause. And they just wouldn't say anything because they were like trying to think, what am I even talking about right now? What am I doing? That's because they hadn't planned the journey of their answer in their head. Like, I want to go from A to B to C. Like, I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to like do this final thing to finish it off. That's what you want to plan in your head during the 60 seconds. And it basically is going to give you a coherent answer rather than just stopping in the middle, right? And the reason I write down on the notepad is just because it just is helpful. If you're in the middle of the answer, you just forget where you are. You can just glance at the notepad. Oh, key points. I need to do this, 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 and it just gives you a bit of a reminder on what you need to talk about. The other thing with the video interview is when they do the automatic recording, they can usually give you a second or third go. So sometimes they do let you re-record each question. So there's that option there. So if on the first attempt you end up completely messing up and like you forget what you're saying, then you can just re-record it a second time, sometimes a third time. So if you completely mess up, then yeah, of course, re-record it, right? If your answer is pretty good the first time, I would recommend not re-recording. Okay, so I very rarely re-recorded my answers in the video interview. Even if I think it wasn't perfect, if I think it was like 90%, I'd just go with it, okay? Because the thing is, usually your first answer is the best. When you end up doing a second time or a third time, there's a lot more pressure on you because it is your last attempt. So say you do it the first time, there's not really any pressure because if you mess up, you can re-record, fine, no problem. Say you decide to re-record, you're doing it a second time. Now there's pressure because say they only give you 2 attempts. If you mess up this second time, you're just going to have to submit it and it's not going to be there. So usually I've found that when you re-record and you do your second or third answer, it's actually not as good as the first one. So to be honest, the way I see it is, if your answer's good enough, if it's like 80% good, then just submit it off the first time. If you completely mess up and it's a load of rubbish, then of course re-record. But I actually think it's the best strategy not to re-record because it's just so much more pressure on the second and third attempts. It means you're actually more likely to mess up. That's just what I found, but you might have your own preference there. Okay, so those are the intermediate stages, how to pass those. You're going to get sent those after your initial application. Once you've done these and you've been successful, they might let you know that you've got through to the assessment center. A couple of different stages of the assessment center. We're going to go through how to be successful. Let me just get a drink real quick. Okay, so the assessment center interview. Let me go through the questions they ask you in a degree apprenticeship interview. Because if you search online like I did before doing my first interviews, you get a whole bunch of websites which tell you about questions, but they're more sort of questions that they might ask like a 35-year-old senior engineer interview. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because degree apprenticeships are so specific, there's not much information on there online about what goes on in the interview, what sort of questions they ask you. So let me cover like exactly what the questions are they ask you, because these are the common questions you can actually prepare answers for in advance, okay? So there's 3 types of questions. The first one is just standard questions. Why do you want this role? Why do you think you'd be a good fit? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why do you want to work for a company? Why do you want to do a degree apprenticeship over going to university? What's the biggest challenge you expect to face? All that sort of thing. Standard questions. You can basically get an answer ready for every single one of those. Okay. The next type is star questions, and these are questions which start with like the sort of phrase, "Tell me about a time when." Okay, and you have to answer with a scenario that you've been through in your life. So the question might be, "Tell me about a time when you worked as a team." You're then going to have to talk about that scenario that happened in your life where you worked as a team. The reason it's called STAR is because you need to answer it in a specific way. Situation, task, action, result. It's really important that you use this structure when you're going through your answer. Okay, that's the key thing with these STAR questions, because that's how you're going to get the most marks when you answer this question. So it's going to be the situation. So let's say the question is, tell me about a time when you worked as a team. The situation would be cup final in your five-a-side football team, right? Task was we were losing 3-0 at half time and we had to come back and win. So the action was, as group captain, I got us all in a huddle and I asked for everyone's opinions on what the tactics were. By doing this, I was able to embrace different people's viewpoints. And I actually let the goalkeeper speak, and he'd been kind of quiet. I asked what his opinion was, and he actually noticed something that none of us had noticed, and that was that, like, the right-hand side, we were always leaving free, and there was a guy there we weren't marking. And then also, during the second half, there were people struggling, getting injured, so we just made sure that we supported each other, didn't blame each other if someone made a mistake, just switching positions when needed so that we could help. In the end, because we did this, right, this is result, in the end we ended up scoring 4 goals and we won 4-3. Okay, so that's how you do it. You don't have to say stuff like don't in your answer say, oh, situation, task. Like, don't say that, but just think in your head, right? First talking about the situation and the task, then the action, and like it's really important you say the result, because then it like gives weight to this example. Because it's like, tell me about a time you worked as a team. Oh, I worked as a team in the cup final. What was the result? We lost 5-0. And then it's like, what's the point? Right, so the result's important. You can say, oh, and because we worked as a team, we ended up winning 2-0. Okay, because of this, I ended up actually being nominated as #1, like, science leader or something. Right, or #1 prefect, or like employee of the month. Right, the result there, so it's like a tangible thing. So you want to be thinking about these scenarios for all of the common STAR questions. I've put them up on the board. Well, I'm a school teacher or something. I'll put them up on the screen. Things like, tell me about a time when you worked as a team. Tell me about a time you came up with a creative solution. Tell me about a time you led a project. Basically, these are the most common sort of questions they can come up with. Think about examples in your past when these have come up. Volunteering, jobs, school projects, courses, sports team, musical instruments, anything like this. When you worked above and beyond for a customer. I gave an example of when I was working at a garden centre. Worked as a team. I gave D&V as an example. That sort of thing. This is a good one to screenshot so that you can just tick off every single one of these, making sure you have an example ready. And the final type of question is a scenario-based question. Things like, what would you do if you had to work with a difficult colleague? What would you do if you had to manage multiple priorities at once? These sort of hypothetical questions, just to sort of see how would you deal with these in the workplace? Like, would you be a good employee, or these sort of things? So step 1 is basically to prepare answers to the common questions like these, because when these come up in your interview, like they quite often do, to be fair, I'm actually decent at predicting interview questions. Just like a side story, there was someone actually from Australia who asked me for help with this interview, and it was some random Australian company. I had a look through the website and basically predicted a bunch of, I was like, oh, okay, I've looked at their website. These are the questions I think they're going to ask you. And literally ended up 90% of those, they ended up asking him like I predicted them perfectly from the website, right? So that's just a side note there. But if you prepare for the common questions, like the questions you can predict, I've predicted some of them for you now, then it basically means 50%, 60% of those answers, the moment they ask them, like you're like, get in, I've got that one ready. You've got it like locked in your mind. You can just go and answer that really easy. Okay, that's step 1, but you got to do a bit more than that. You don't just want to do that. So the second thing is you also need to prepare for the unexpected questions. Okay, so they're going to ask those questions which you already know. Okay, so you're going to go into interview, they're going to ask you, why do you want this role? And you're like, let's go, right? But the next thing is they're going to ask you some unexpected questions. You need to be prepared for that. And if you're not prepared for that, and you've never done it before, you've never like come up with an answer on the spot, when they ask you in the interview, you're just gonna falter. You're just gonna like stop and not know what to do because you've never had to deal with it before. So this is why like doing mock interviews is really important. So last year I did mock interviews with a bunch of people before their interviews to like help them, and they ended up getting the offers. And I'd always throw in some like really rogue, unexpected questions just to see how they deal with it, and just so they could have that experience of having to come up with an answer on the spot, and to develop that interview skill. Okay, so that's really important, doing those mock interviews so that you are prepared for those unexpected questions as well. Because I've seen it where people just rely on like the common questions, and then when a weird question comes up, they just literally don't know what to say. They've no idea. And then the third tip I have for you with interviews is surprise the interviewer with your questions at the end, because it just leaves a really good impression. So questions at the end, of course, if there's like any like normal questions you need to ask, like what university is it with, like what's the holiday like, what are the working hours like, yep, ask those questions, best place to find out, okay, you need to know. But also I'd make sure that I start off with some like really good technical sophisticated questions that just surprise the interviewer, and leave a good impression, like things like, what are the challenges, what challenges should I expect to face day to day in this degree apprenticeship? By the end of this degree apprenticeship, what knowledge, skills and behaviours will I have learnt that will develop me to become an expert in this field or something? Some like questions like that, that basically show that you're like a serious candidate, you're actually properly interested. They'll just give you a good impression. Like they're not going to mark it down like explicitly. They're not going to give you, oh, this guy asked a good question, let's give him like a star. No, it's just they're going to remember. This is more of a psychological thing. When they remember you later, when they're deciding which candidate they want to choose, they're going to remember you as, oh, you're the one that was really interested and was asking these really good questions. This guy seems like a sort of professional guy, compared to the person who's like, oh, do you have any questions for me? And they're like, no. Okay, so just make sure, when they always do in all interviews, when the interviewer asks you at the end, do you have any questions for me? Make sure you have some like good questions that are going to sort of like surprise them with like how good they are, because it's just going to mean like you're going to be remembered in their mind as just a much more professional, interested person. It's going to increase your chance of getting the offer. Okay, so another thing they can do in the assessment center is a presentation. So this is an example of the sort of brief they can give you. They'll give you a brief beforehand that you have to prepare. It might be something like prepare a 7-minute presentation on a technical topic of your choice. It might be prepare a 10-minute presentation on how the BBC makes its broadcasts, right? When I applied to the BBC, that was one of the presentations. Make a 10-minute presentation on how the BBC like broadcasts stuff, right? 3 key tips in. Number 1, cover the entire brief. So usually you'll get like a full like document PDF which shows the entire brief. It's not going to be just like 5 words like this. It'll be like, prepare a technical topic of your on a presentation. Prepare a presentation on a technical topic of your choice, and there'll be like 4 bullet points saying specifically cover how it was developed, like what the past is, what the current thing is, what the new innovations are, what the future. Like there'll be loads of like specific bullet points I want to talk about. Number 1, make sure you cover every single bullet point. Okay, because if you don't cover the bullet points, it's just easy marks lost. Number 2, stick exactly to the time limit. In 95% of degree apprenticeship like presentations, they will stop you at exactly 7 minutes. So say it's like prepare a 7-minute presentation, it's going to go 6:58, 6:59, 7 minutes, thank you. They're like going to if you're still talking, still doing your presentation, they're going to interrupt you and say thank you, your time is now over. Okay, so make sure you're sticking exactly to the time limit, like you're ready to stop at 7 minutes. If it's a 10-minute presentation, make sure you're ready to stop at 10 minutes 0. Most companies, most assessment centers, they'll stop you exactly on the time limit. They're not going to let you go on rambling for another 5 minutes. Number 3 is don't read off the slides. Okay, so we've all seen it done probably in school, where like this is what people used to do back in the day, where you just sort of like write up your script like a paragraph, copy and paste it onto your presentation, and then when you're delivering your presentation, you just like stare at the board and just read off the script, like the presentation word for word. Again, it's just not a good presentation, like you probably know that. So it's how, for example, I could script out this entire presentation now, and like every single word I'm saying I could have written on, and I could just read it, but it wouldn't be very engaging. So don't read off the slides. Just do a sort of thing where you just put like the key points, couple of words, maybe an image, that sort of thing, put that on the slides, and then the most of the stuff you're talking is just from memory, out loud like this. Okay. And the practice is, the key action is practice 10 times in a row. So I was trying to look for an image when I had to do a presentation for university a couple of months ago. I literally practiced it 10 times in a row, and each time I was like writing down how long it took me. Like this took me 5 minutes 20, this took me 5 minutes 10, this took me 5 minutes 05, this took me 5 minutes, this took me 4:55. I couldn't find the image. But this is the key thing. Literally practice 10 times in a row, because first of all, it's going to get your timing like perfect. When I say stick exactly to the time limit, when I was doing my presentations, I could literally do the presentation and stop exactly on like 7 minutes. Like stop exactly on 6:59, because I'd done it so many times, I knew exactly how fast to talk. The other thing is, when you practice it 10 times in a row, it just means you're going to be good at the presentation. If you don't know how to like memorize a presentation and get it all in your head, it's literally because you haven't practiced it enough. So a lot of people might make the presentation, boom, I've made the presentation, don't even practice it. You go into your assessment centre and you end up fumbling the presentation, you like stumble on a bit, you forget what you're saying here, you go over the time limit, all this sort of thing. It's literally because you didn't practice, okay? If you practice 10 times in a row straight after each other, okay, you're going to be really good on the time limit, you're going to know what's everything here, you're going to have memorised it in your head, it's going to be a really good presentation, okay? So literally, the quality of your presentation, how many marks you get in your presentation, is just directly correlated to how long you spend on it and how long you spend preparing for it. Okay, so just spend the time, literally practice it 10 times in a row. Like I'm not even just telling you to do this. I'm saying this because this is something I did in all presentations, not just degree apprenticeship applications, but definitely in my degree apprenticeship applications. I'd literally just whack up the presentation and just literally practice it 10 times in a row. On the morning of an assessment centre, I'd make sure I practice at least 3 times in a row. Okay, that's your key action to be successful in the presentation. So group exercise is where they basically get you in a group with, could be 2 to 10 other candidates, and they just get you to do a group task. It could be something like plan a charity sporting event, or imagine you're stranded in space, what would you do? Right? Group exercise, because you're in a group, like the key thing obviously is they want to see how you collaborate, they want to see your teamwork skills, interpersonal skills, all that sort of thing, okay? But the problem is, you're in this group exercise with 2 to 10 other candidates. Like, that's the thing, with this group exercise, it's all nice and wholesome because you're a team, you're working together. At the end of the day, you realise those other people in the group exercise, they are competing for the same job as you. You're all competing for the same job. If there's like a group exercise where there's like 5 of you, like 5 different people, probably only 2 of you are going to be getting the job, okay? So this is where you need to like give yourself an advantage here. Yeah, you can be nice, collaborative, teamwork, all this sort of thing. It's kind of cute, but at the end of the day, they end up getting your job. So at the end of the day, this is a competition. You want that degree apprenticeship. So what you want to do is be the project manager. Okay, so first things first, don't be bossy. Don't tell anyone, oh, we're doing this, because that's straight away a red flag. Okay, so they're looking for people who are collaborative, can work within a team. So you don't want to just be some like dictator, leader, like telling everyone what to do, shouting at everyone, all this sort of thing. Obviously, don't do that, but you know that, right? Be the project manager. What this means is you're sort of just like a collaborative leader who you're sort of taking charge. Because that's the thing, as I said, you're against other candidates who want your job. You have to show you're better than them. If you just show that you're the same level as them, they might end up getting the job. You have to show they're better than them, and that's through being the project manager. Okay, that's things like keeping track of the time. This is really a good one. I was at an assessment centre, and I basically, when he said go, I tracked the time, I wrote down the time. When there was 15 minutes to go, I said, guys, we've got 15 minutes, can we move on to this, right? We got 2 minutes, does anyone have any last thoughts? All this sort of thing. At the end, the assessor actually told me I was the only person out of about, 12 people that day who had kept track of the time. No one else had even thought of the time. They'd just done the activity and stopped when they stopped. But I'd like specifically noted down when's the time we started. Oh, guys, we've got 30 minutes left. Guys, we've give 15 minutes left. Guys, just a reminder, we've got 30 seconds. Do you have a last opinion before we get on with this? Okay, keep track of the time. No one thinks of it, and it'll basically just instantly give you a massive boost. Include the quiet people. Loads of different personality types. You've got introverts, extroverts, all that sort of thing. You'll have a couple of people in your group who are always talking. Okay, great. You'll have some people who literally sit there and don't say anything. Easy marks for you is just include them. Literally just say, oh, Taylor, I don't know why I thought Taylor Swift, right? Oh, Taylor, I haven't heard your opinion. What did you think about this? Right? Oh, Chris, what was your opinion on this one? That sort of thing, right? So it's like when the group makes a decision, if someone hasn't said anything, I'm trying to think of names here. Oh, Barry, I didn't hear your opinion. Do you think we should do this, or did you prefer the other option? Because that's including other people. That shows you collaborative. It shows you teamwork. Shows you care about other people's opinions. A lot of companies care about that. They want someone who can collaborate, have like unique viewpoints and all this sort of stuff. Another thing is organising the group tasks, and this has a lot to do with the project manager. Is do things like suggest, okay, so when the group exercise starts, like the moment it starts, say something like, okay guys, how do you want to do this? Should we start by like discussing the different options, and then shall we go and start making a presentation which goes with the option you want? Something like that shows you're taking charge. That's being the project manager. You're not going around and shouting at anyone saying, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to discuss it for 5 minutes, and then we're going to do this for 5 minutes. No, it's like, guys, I was just thinking, should we, just to make sure we allocate our time effectively and we don't run out of time, should we allocate 15 minutes to discuss the different options, and we'll go around everyone's opinions and see what they think, just so we can collaborate and use everyone's viewpoints. And then should we spend 30 minutes focused on the presentation? And I just want to reserve 10 minutes at the end to do a practice presentation so that we can get it ready for when we have to present this back to the assessors. Does that sound good to anyone? Does anyone have any other ideas? That's being super collaborative. You see, like the tone I did. I was like, oh, does anyone have any other ideas? Guys, shall we do this? I wasn't like, we're doing this. This is what we're doing. I was like, guys, shall we do this? This is what I was thinking you can do. It sounds collaborative. But on top of that, you're taking the lead. You're being the person who's taking that initiative. You're showing those leadership skills. So you're going above and beyond. You're being like the top person. That's what you want to be. In these group exercises, you've got to be the top person. It is what it is. If you join best with anyone else, or if anyone's better than you, they're going to get the job. The other one is just come up with some intelligent points. So if it's something like, imagine you're stranded in space, maybe you like know some specific thing about, oh, if we do this with like an airlock, then it like creates water or something. Or like, there's some good idea. That's just is what it is. If you're doing the group exercise and you can think of a really good idea, some intelligent points, that's great. And the key is practice. So last year I helped a whole bunch of people in mock group exercises based on some group exercises that Amazon do, that PwC do. So I'll talk a bit more about that later. But that's the key thing there. If you can practice, then you can know how to utilize all of these different techniques here. Okay, that is the group exercise. You want to follow those different steps. Case study, very similar to the group exercise in the sense you're going to have to do a task. This is one where you sort of have to do the task on your own in front of the assessor, and you probably have to talk it through to the assessors. So they might give you like a bunch of like material, so maybe like 5 pages of like material. You go through and read it, and then maybe you have to create a plan for distributing clean energy, or maybe you like read some documents about bridge design, and then you have to provide your recommendations and deliver those recommendations to the assessor. Okay, some key things I want you to do here. Visibly make notes and use a calculator. An assessor has told me that when they do this, they're literally looking at you to check if you're making notes. Like, that's literally on their mark scheme. And this is as simple as, when you're making notes, and say it's a virtual, for example, don't type on your computer making notes, because this is what typing on your computer looks like. It looks like nothing, right? Because your fingers are down here. However, if you're making notes on paper, you can visibly do that in the camera and get that mark, because you want to make sure you're getting that mark. So, for example, this is a very short pencil. I would do things in my case study where I'd like purposely be putting my pen up here and like do this to show that I'm writing, just to make it clear to the camera so that I can get those marks for making notes. So I'd purposely hold my pencil and pen up here so that they could see that I was making notes. And the other thing here is like use a calculator. So again, I do the same thing. It's sort of taking the mick a bit, but I'd like hold my calculator up here to show that I'm doing these sort of calculations, to show that I'm numerically minded. In the case study, is there some data? Can I manipulate some data? Maybe do a percentage difference. Maybe in the one for like clean energy, maybe there's a table of data, some statistics, and it says coal produces 100 tons of carbon dioxide. Solar panels produce 40 kilograms of 40 tons or whatever I said of carbon dioxide. That is a 60% decrease. Okay, and obviously it'll be a more complicated sum, but you can do that, and that shows that numerical ability. Again, make sure you cover the whole brief, same as the presentation, and again, come up with some intelligent points if you can have some good ideas. So I think one of the ones I did was to do with distributing oil or distributing hydrogen, something like that. And I actually mentioned, and it was like, how do you want to do this? Do we do it by pipeline? Do we do it by ship? This sort of thing. And there were some things about like cost. This is the cost of transporting it by ship. This is the cost of transporting by pipeline. I said those, but I also came with another idea, which is like geopolitical. I talked about how we couldn't put a pipeline through Ukraine and Russia because that's going on there. So that was just an idea that no one else had come up with. No one else had like thought out the box and be like, oh yeah, this isn't just a cost thing, it's a geopolitical thing as well. So if you can come up with intelligent points and like that, that's great. And again, practice a case study. I had a case study, like a mock case study, which I gave to people so they could practice their ability in this. Okay, and then the last thing they could do in the assessment center is a networking event. This is quite a rare one. Not many companies do this, but I think it's mainly the finance industry, finance degree apprenticeship, companies like JP Morgan, that sort of thing. That's where they're more likely to do this networking event sort of thing. Yeah, it's a good photo, man. Good couple of photos. Right, so networking events, a lot of people can get nervous with a networking event because a lot of people can get nervous with that was funny. A lot of people can get nervous with a networking event because you're going to have to talk to loads of people you don't know, right? And that can make a lot of people nervous, okay? It used to make me nervous as well. This is like the exact thing you need to do, okay? These are the two things you need to do. Number one, you got to realize that everyone else is nervous. Like, it's not just you. Like, literally 90% of the population, like, these days has, like, social anxiety just because, like, that's how we're all brought up these days, right? Gen Z, right? 90% of people are nervous to just realize that it's not just you. Like, it's not just you coming in here and everyone else is chilling. Like, everyone else is scared as well, right? Just realize that. Second thing is, this is exactly what you do to do well in a networking event, because people get like worried, like, oh, what happens if I'm standing there and I have no one to talk to and I don't know anyone? I don't want to do, like, people get like really awkward when they're standing at a networking event and like they're just, no one's around them and they're just not talking to anyone. Okay, so what you can do is an easy way to do well in a networking event is just go up to someone who's on their own. Okay, because when they're on their own, they're standing there really awkwardly, they're sort of panicking, don't know what to do. Oh, no one wants to talk to me, this is really weird. Just go up to them when they're on their own, because it basically means they're going to really like you, because you've basically saved them from having to stand on their own. Okay, this is what I do at networking events. Literally just find someone who's on their own and they're like kind of like panicking, they don't know what to do. Just go and talk to them, ask them a question, let them talk about themselves, because everyone loves talking about themselves, right? So just ask them questions about them, and then basically just leave when the conversation feels like it's slowing. And like, to be honest, like, if you don't really know, like, this is getting into some like social skills stuff, but if you can't even think of anything to say, honestly, because like the conversation's flowing, like you've asked a few questions and it's sort of, yeah, cool conversation, then just be like, you know what, it was really good to meet you. I'm going to go around and see if I can meet some other people as well, try and talk to as many people as I can, but it was really good to meet you and I hope you have a good rest of the evening. And then just go and find someone else and just repeat that. Okay, so if you're fine with networking events and like you don't have like social anxiety or anything like that, then networking events not going to be a problem. You just go there, you get to talk to loads of people, great, congrats, right? But if you are a bit like shy and that sort of thing, not fond of such social situations, just follow this exact framework. It's so powerful going up to someone who's on their own. Because if you go up to people who are in a group or there's two of them, it can seem kind of awkward. But when someone's on their own, it's like, it's just easy, because they want to talk to you, because they feel kind of awkward standing on their own. That's the key to doing well in a networking event. Because with a networking event, it is just basically there's gonna be loads of assessors there, other candidates. You're just going to have to talk to people, like leave a good impression with the assessors. So just make sure, try and get as many names as you can. Come with questions prepared so that you can seem interested and all that sort of thing. And that's what you can do at that networking event. Okay, so there we go. That's the assessment center. That's different parts of the assessment center covered and how to pass every single stage of that. And that's the whole application process. So there we go. I've covered today how to pass every stage of the degree apprenticeship application process. Once you've been through all that, once you've done the initial application, the intermediate stages, and the assessment center, maybe 2 days, maybe a week later, hopefully they're going to send you through an email or a phone call basically saying you've got the offer. So these are some people I helped last year get degree apprenticeship offers from companies like JLR, Amazon, Rolls-Royce, KPMG, IBM, just to name a few. And these are all people who are all part of my program. So if you want to be part of that program as well, then you can go and click the link in the description. As you can see, we've had some insane results. And that's where I've covered a lot of the things I've mentioned previously, like mock interviews, mock group exercises, had some courses on how to specifically get into some companies like JLR. You can see mentioned here, the JLR full guide, 5-star, etc., etc. Okay, so thanks for watching today's video. I hope that helps, and now you know how to pass every stage of the application process. And if you want more help with getting into a degree apprenticeship, go click the link in the description. See you later. Peace out.